Show me some licks and I'll show you a Metallica song. One that we've always, I think, have had some sort of inner desire, some sort of subconscious desire to try and just be different. It's not something that I said that we really sat down and decided. It was more, I think, we saw a lot of other bands put themselves in situations that we really wanted to avoid ourselves and so forth. And I think that just over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, we've just been interested in trying to stand our own ground and so forth, and just trying to, you know, not consciously, but just sort of, as much as we could, sort of shy clear of some of the cliches lyrically and, like you said, visually, and just in a lot of different ways that other bands seem to attach themselves to.
Well, when I was like about 5 or 6 years old, I mean, I'm sure you know the story, my brother was around and he listened to a lot of the heavier bands of that era, which was like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Cream, that sort of stuff. When I picked up a guitar again when I was about 15, I had remembered listening to all this stuff when I was younger, and I had went out and bought all those albums I used to listen to when I was really young. And I started learning the stuff that I used to listen to when I was a tot. And it had a pretty profound effect on my musical stance as it stands today.
New wave of British heavy metal started in England roughly around late '79. I think it was basically hard rock and metal's answer to what was going on in '76, '77 with the punk rock thing, where, you know, a lot of through the '70s, hard rock and metal in Europe was called very much, you know, sort of dinosaur rock, with you had your Purples, your Zeppelins, your Sabbaths were sort of doing this old sort of thing that was starting to become sort of very unfashionable, and very sort of, people were sort of very much, you know, it was very sort of Stonehenge kind of thing. And I think what the punk thing did was that it showed a lot of the people that you didn't need to sit around and wait for the major labels, and you could sort of go out and do it your own kind of thing. And a lot of the young metal bands that came out in '79 were very influenced by, I think, some of the music from the hard rock metal earlier days, but some of the punk attitudes where you sort of would go out, get your own gigs, do demo tapes, do singles and so forth, and that the thing would be maybe slightly more energetic and slightly more sort of just aggressive and up-tempo than some of the old, you know, Sabbath thing on, you know, playing on 16 RPMs, whatever. So basically, you know, in late '79, all these young bands started coming out. Obviously, bands like Iron Maiden, Saxon, Motorhead, Def Leppard, but also there was like just loads of other small, younger bands. And I think that what really attracted me to that period, and I think what I really miss about that period now, which I don't see around today, is that all the bands had very much their own identities, and they all sort of stood their own ground, and all had their own sound and their own kind of personalities and everything like that. Whereas today, I think everything is just one big mismatch. But back then, it was just very fresh, and everything was just very sort of exciting and new, and I was very obsessed with this whole movement, and especially because in 1980, right when it was at its high point, I moved to Los Angeles from Denmark and became sort of very isolated away from it. So I became, like I said, very obsessed with this whole movement, and I think it really sort of prompted me to try and get Metallica together in Los Angeles in 1981. You know, about 9 or 10 years old in Denmark, and first started becoming very interested in music and so forth. For some reason, drums, I used to start out with these cardboard boxes and these things that you would mix paint with, you know, and just sit and play on these things, and never try to play anything specifically structured or anything, but I always used to sit and pretend that I was Ian Pace from Deep Purple, and I always got a big kick out of that. And I think up through the rest of the '70s, every time that, you know, most people would stand in front of the mirror and play air guitar, I always found myself, you know, swinging wildly in the air, playing, or pretending I was some sort of drummer. You have the guitar, and then you have sort of the drums and the bass together in the background, and I think we've just always, as you say, worked more with the drums and the guitar being sort of the main backbone of the band. And I think that some of those influences came from this band called Diamond Head, where the drummer and the guitar player, you know, they played some very sort of very riff-oriented music and so forth, where the drums would really sort of play along it and accent certain, you know, obviously accents in the guitar riff and so forth, and really play very well together. And I think that what I've been trying to do in the last few years is try and make the drums sort of part of the upfront sound. I think there are too many metal bands nowadays where the drums is just something that just sort of keeps, you know, counting to 4 in the background, which is fine for some bands because that's what they're interested in. But I've been trying to sort of make the drums work as to sort of bring out certain accents and certain colors in the sound and so forth that I just think makes it slightly more interesting both for me and also hopefully for the people that listen. But you know, obviously because we write most of the songs together and get all the arrangements and everything together, obviously I would say that most of the general sound of the band is obviously structured around the rhythm guitar and the drums.
My main objective is to be as different as I can from album to album, and I try and put into solos what knowledge I've gained over the past 2 years. I play a lot, and I play a lot when we're off the road with friends and we get together and go, hey, do you know any good licks you can show me, and you know, and vice versa. To me, and interesting for the song, you know, an embellishment of the song. It has to fit in with what the songs, you know, what's going on musically with the song, and you know, I just try to you know, put in as much as I can of my own you know, touch, and right now I'm trying to open up a little bit more, and I'm trying to learn how to play classical music. It's really difficult, especially on the road, because when you play classical music on a Stratocaster, it's kind of not the same.
On the last album, for instance, on Justice, we had all 9 songs written and arranged and completely actually done for the first time before we went in. There was a couple of songs on both Puppets and Lightning that were actually written in the studio, and I find that this time around we really wanted to have the songs written because when you go in and play them, if you know them and have lived with them for a while, you have a different sort of feel with them. You feel a little looser when you play and you feel maybe a little more confident, and I think that shows up in the sound. Basically what we do is we get a sort of click track together, not so much, it's funny because not so much for timing purposes, but because we like to have some of the different parts go slightly up and down in tempo because some of the different parts feel better at different tempos. So if you say the intro feels good at, you know, 102 beats per minute, then maybe the next riff will sound slightly better if it's just at 106 or something like that. So you sort of basically construct a click track the way that the song feels right to you when you play it. James will then, this can sometimes actually take a couple days, it's pretty funny.
Is that click track like just like a hi-hat or something?
Yeah, it's just something that goes, and then James will put down the basic rhythm guitar track to it, put down a scratch vocal, and he'll leave. And I'll just record the drums with me and Fleming Rasmussen, who does the production and engineering, and there'll be no one else around. I'll just be there to play myself to James's rhythm guitar and his vocals. And it just works better for us that way. We seem to, a lot of people seem to be very surprised when we say that's how we record, because obviously we've found a way of, even though we all record isolated, that it still sounds very lively and sort of very much like we're jamming together. It just works better for all of us. Actually, none of the instruments are at any point recorded together. All 4 of us record separately.
Well, one thing about working in the studio alone is that, you know, you have the privacy to think things out also without, you know, the other band members going, wow, that was great, or wow, that was really awful. You know, you get to sit down and listen to it yourself and make the decision yourself, and then call them in. But I mean, it's just easier for all of us to work that way, and a lot of the times the complete solo will be written, and I'll go in there and you know, change everything all around. Or other times I won't have the faintest idea what I'm gonna play, and I'll go in there and, you know, play a complete solo in like 2 hours, so it'll be done. It happens a lot more the other way though. I come in with a written thing and like just change it and tear it all apart.
Basically, I treat the drums like anything else. I don't, you know, some people are very much like drums are supposed to be recorded in one take, says who, you know, guitars and vocals are recorded over 3 days, so why shouldn't drums be the same thing? The main thing is that you get the right feel when the whole thing is done. My general problem is that I like to, when I record and when the actual record button is on, that I like to give everything that I have in my body in the output so it sounds as lively and as energetic as possible. And basically when I do that, I'll knock the snare drum head out of tune in like a minute, or you know, things will just start sort of just breaking down around me so quickly that, you know, basically I can not really record more than a minute at a time. With recording, we've tried a few other people over the last few years, and basically it just never really works out. Like, we're so different, I think, from how other people are, and we've obviously done 3 albums with Fleming now, and it just, it works, and you know, I don't see any reason to change it.
Metallica gig now?
Almost 5 years.
Yeah, how do you like it?
It's different. It's very original, I must say.
Is it a way of life?
To a degree, I'd say it was, yeah.
How many dates have you done? Would you estimate those 5 days?
Well, we've done about 155 shows on this tour so far. And we must have done 300 or 400 before that, I suppose. So we must have done 550.
What's a typical day for you?
Line check. If the band are going to do a sound check, obviously we do that when they come in. If not, I just run through all the channels with the back line boys, sort all the stuff out. It seems to get everything working.
It's a duct tape.
I think Metallica as a band have more of a concept sound as opposed to a sort of a general rock and roll sound. It's like, okay, you can do an overall sound, but it doesn't suit Metallica. It sounds real sort of flat and not very powerful unless you get some sort of bottom end of some power behind it. You have to create the power.
Don't fall, Timmy! Hey. That's pretty wild. Yeah. It's pretty wild how that comes about. I always liked Van Halen better before.
Yeah, when Dave was there.
Yeah, you know, I saw him. He was always drunk and stuff, but
He's good. He's a showman.
this is Jason's guitar. Jason's new bass guitar. And it has 4 strings. That one over here. This one has 5. This one is really big. It's a really big string. Yeah. They're a big noise. But the back over here. Take this. We're gonna tune this guitar. Over here.
The thighs of a beginner. 2. Yeah. 2. Yeah. Is this flat?
Gotta keep your eye on this right here. There's a tuner. Right here.
Zach Hammond.
Yes.
Start a straight.
These are new strings, so you must stretch out new strings. So they'll stay in tune. Right, Opie?
Okay, I'm the lighting designer for Metallica, and what you see here, these are tools. This is like a hammer or a screwdriver. And what matters is what you make with this hammer or screwdriver, which is that you see up there, which are also tools up there, lighting instruments, things like that. Right? And all this that you see here came from the concept of the Justice album. That's a courthouse. That's a damaged courthouse. Yeah, they wanted something different. They didn't want the Iron Maiden look, the heavy metal look. They didn't want the Judas Priest look at all. They wanted it to be different. They didn't want lots of beams. They wanted it to come from the meaning of the album, because if you read the lyrics, as any fan has, who has memorized the lyrics, you know what this band is about, is that they're about anti-war and anti-injustice.
I have 5 different licenses, from 1 federal and then 4 from 4 different states. And then, like, to come up to Canada, I got to get a permit from the mining, the Department of Mines and stuff, just to bring the stuff in. Because it's all Class C special fireworks, which is like, you know, you have A, B, and C. A is like high explosives, B is like the bigger outdoor fireworks, and then C is like the fireworks that we're using here. When this goes off tonight, this will be James's cue to come back on stage, and when it goes off, we'll shoot up silver sparkles to about a little bit higher than the lighting truss, right?
I mean, I don't do everything all the time, but it's just kind of keeping an eye on everything. And it's mostly band related. I mean, Jake deals with most of the production stuff in the show, but it's mostly making sure the band's happy, making sure the band get up on time, get to places on time, do interviews like this and other ones, phoners, various things. Just, you know, it's all band related with me and overall.
Are you friends with these guys, and how did you get the job in the first place?
I was actually started out as Lars's drum roadie. I was home for a while, and I was taking some time off the road, and a friend of mine was tour managing these guys as a favor to their management, and he called me and said, would you come work for Metallica? And I said, who? Because previous to this, I had never done metal bands. I had been with Jay Giles and David Bowie and Laurie Anderson and Big Country. You know, I am not a big heavy metal fan. And 5 years later, it turns out I'm still here. Yes, I'm definitely friends with these guys. Excuse me, let's see who's calling, shall we? Production.
From the Grammy-nominated album, And Justice for All, Metallica!
We were real loud, real loud. It's a shame because the sound quality didn't come across over the telecast, because I had seen a videotape of our showing, and I thought, what? This sounds awful. We didn't sound like that live. And I talked to, you know, people I knew who were in the audience. They said, you guys are loud. And I was going, yeah, good. The people who are doing the telecast in the mobile were used to, you know, mixing things that way. You know, it's commercially, you know, a lot of drums, a lot of vocals. You know, keep the guitar down, keep the bass down. So I mean, that was that. We couldn't do very much about that because they're all union guys, and they, you know, their attitude is, well, if you don't like it, don't play. So I mean, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do in that sort of situation. But I was very nervous because I was worrying about my equipment breaking down in the middle of it.
The song one is loosely based on these lyrics from a book called Johnny Got His Gun, written by a guy named Dalton Trumbo. And what we found out in September of last year was that there was actually a movie of the same name that came and went really quickly back in 1971, directed by Dalton Trumbo himself. We thought that sounded pretty interesting. We got the rights to the movie, checked out the movie, and basically came up with the idea, which is something that we couldn't really remember anyone else having done, which was basically trying to tell the story of what goes on within the song and obviously within the movie, and taking bits and pieces from the movie and integrating them with us playing the song in a very loose and subdued kind of, you know, way, just when we jam or rehearse or whatever. So we basically just filmed us playing the song one day and basically intercut it with all this footage that this guy had picked out, which were the main essential parts to the story. And, you know, to make a long story shorter, we just thought that we had an idea here which was very, very different and very unique from what other metal bands had been doing with their videos for the past few years, and thought that we could really create an atmosphere and do something that was just very interesting for us because we'd never done a video, and also just would be interesting to other people simply because it would be slightly different than what other metal bands have been doing.
The director was someone that our management had known about. Actually, the last thing he did was let's see, We'll Get Together by Sting. He did that video, yeah. And if you look at that video, it's also in black and white, and that film noir kind of feel to it. And what we did was we just played in a warehouse and told the director, well, you're gonna have to match the moods, because the mood to the movie has, a certain feel to it. And the way we're filmed, you have to catch that sort of mood that's to the movie, while you're filming us. And he did a great job. I thought he matched the two mediums together, and that's how the video came about. I think nowadays that we've reached this particular level, we've gained a lot more respect for this type of music, which is still, pretty fresh. I mean, it hasn't been around, not even maybe a decade now, because I know it's hard to pinpoint it, but I mean, as far as the band is concerned, it's great now because it gives us more freedom to do what we want to do. And when we go into the studio the next time around, no one's gonna come knocking on the door saying, well, you guys are gonna have to write a 3-minute song, and you guys are gonna have to sell so many albums, so you gotta write this song, or no one's gonna come into the studio and say, hey, look, you guys have to do a song that would get airplay, or whatever. We can do what we want. We can take as much time as we want to record the next album too, which is nice because we work really slow in the studio.
It's obviously great that we're at the moment doing fairly well and so forth. It's something that you gotta be careful not to sort of rely on too much, because always, things change and so forth, and we're just making the most out of it right now. Obviously, I think especially down in the States at the moment, you have a situation with Guns N' Roses and with Def Leppard and with Whitesnake and so forth, where everyone's going, oh, metal is so in, and where did it all come from, and it's the new metal resurgence and all this crap. And I think that it's dangerous because when people keep saying that, it always sort of, it sort of comes and goes like this. And I think that part of what will happen within a year or two is that we'll sort of hit a very, low lull again. And but I think hopefully I think I'm much more interested for us that we've hit a level that, I'm much more comfortable where we are now, and hopefully have a longevity situation where we are right now, where we can just ride where we are right now for the next, 5, 8, 10 years, instead of being like an overnight success like certain other bands and all of a sudden selling a lot of records. So we've built it up, fairly steadily over the last couple of years, and I feel good about that. And hopefully our longevity factor is one equivalent to, say, like a band of Iron Maiden or something like that, instead of what, like a band like Guns N' Roses, which all of a sudden becomes so popular. I think that is kind of a little dangerous, and so I'm very happy about our situation.